So Ellie, moving on to what we're going to talk about, we have put you as one of the few people who represent Lahaina because you're the only person, and other what, Senator McKelvey represents
Yes.
Lahaina.
Yes.
She has been a city councilwoman. She has been a rep. When did you first get elected in the House of Representatives, Ellie? What year did you come in?
January this year.
Okay.
Year,
So
2023, my first year.
So she's fresh, a freshman, I guess you could call.
January of this year.
January of this year.
Yeah.
But she calls a spade a spade. So when we go to Q&A, you're going to get pretty straight answers. I'm pretty sure of that. Right, Ellie? Why? She calls a spade a spade. She's
Yes.
not
Yeah,
a woman
right.
afraid to say her piece. Welcome for you guys who just came in. We're just doing an introduction to Ellie. But what we're going to do, Ellie's going to give you 10, 15 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes, depending on what she wants to get out, and then do Q&A. And I'm told by our staff that we have to have a microphone. How do we do it? And I will be passing the microphone to various individuals. Does anyone have any complaints or no? We will get to that. Okay, Ellie, having said that,
Yeah.
You want to set the scene for us of what took place? Where were you? What took place? And what looks to be a situation which, we are all grieving for the people of Maui, for those who have lost their loved ones, those who have lost their homes, those who have lost their businesses. And they come and cry on your shoulder, I'm sure. You know what they need. So inform our people in Hawaii Kai what we should know and some of the things maybe that even we can do. So it's all yours. Let's give a round of applause, even though indirectly, to Elle Cochran. Okay, Elle, it's all yours.
Yeah. Mahalo, Rep Ward, for inviting me. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but thank you for having me via virtually here. And it has been, I guess, a numbing kind of experience. I don't think anyone can ever be prepared for something like this. So I am born and raised in Lahaina. I've been here in a couple months. I'll be here for 59 years of my life. I saw many people who perished, and all the businesses in the entire town that I saw go up in flames in front of my eyes on August 8th, is very near and dear to me. And I feel a heavy loss and a lot of trauma, that I've had to work through. So I currently live, there's Lahaina Bypass, and I live right below it. I'm the most Mauka subdivision, but below Lahaina Bypass. There are 2 other increments above the bypass where Lahaina Luna High School is. So that day I'm at home, and it was windy, really gusty and windy. I heard on the news there's a little fire up above, across the bypass, across Lahaina Intermediate School, which is kind of a little, half a mile away or so. I'm like, oh, and it was contained. So I'm like, oh, well, that's good. Fire's contained. Went outside to pick up debris and things blowing around, and it just got super hot and windy. I came in the house and laid down to take a nap. At this point, the power was out, I remember, because there was no air conditioning. Lahaina means merciless sun. It's really hot here. So I went in the back of the house where there was sliding door and a little breeze, but I got awoken by a really strong smoke smell. So I'm like, what's going on? I ran out, look around my home, and then I noticed all my neighbors' cars were gone. I'm like, well, that's odd. Where are they? I jumped in my truck and drove down to the end of the block. And when I looked down, an entire block was just up in flames. And at that point, I'm like, I called the fire chief, Brad Ventura. He's been a speaker at my Rotary many times. So I had a cell phone. I'm like, Chief, it's Ellie. Does Kilauea Mauka need to evacuate? And he's like, why? I went, there's like a really huge fire right now. And so he was on vacation in Colorado, had no clue this fire was happening, the fire chief of Maui County. And I'm like, he goes, let me get back to you. So hang up the phone. He calls me back in a minute, and he says, yeah, you need to evacuate. I'm like, but it is gridlocked up here. And he goes, oh, we'll send police to direct traffic. I'm like, it's too late. And I hung up because I saw the firemen in front of me. They tried to hook up the hose or whatever, but they left hoses, got in their truck and drove away. And I'm like, well, that's my cue to go too, because no firemen's fighting the fire right now. And houses are just one after another catching on fire. And so I just get in my truck, came home, grab my dogs, grab a suitcase, whatever, and then got out just probably in the nick of time, because as I'm leaving my subdivision, you know, houses were already caught on fire, cars are already caught on fire. And I got out and fireballs. It was so windy. I've never seen this before, but flames were in the air, just swirling like fireballs, flying and dropping around me as I'm driving down the road through a subdivision below me. And then the thickest, blackest smoke came up. Just, it was daylight, and then it just became pitch black. I mean, the darkest dark you ever saw. Luckily, I knew the road was straight, so I kept going. And then somehow that black smoke blew away. I was able to get out, get onto the bypass, and there was a big hill. So I drove up on the hill, pulled over, and just was dumbfounded looking back at Lahaina up in flames. Just the whole town just in front of my eyes burning down. And I didn't know how I was feeling. Again, I felt numb. I felt like, is this really happening? You know, I was in disbelief, and just got in my truck and drove further up the hill, because over the bypass, I can look down and see my street. I saw my home still intact, and the wind was blowing so fast and strong towards the ocean, and I was above the initial fire. So I felt confident my house would be there, but then we just kept getting moved down the bypass away from the fire, just every few hours or so. By the time I left Lahaina to get into Kihei to find a place to stay, because the police kept evacuating us further south, it was probably about 2 a.m. when I was finally left Lahaina town, watched my church go up in flames. We could just see from up above all the different areas, the banyan tree, Heinerin Hotel, just these very iconic historical places. Our church just celebrated 200 years. And so it was just, again, I mean, tears weren't there yet. It was like a disbelief feeling, and went to Kihei to spend the night, but I knew I had to come back. I couldn't just sit there safely and know that people in West Maui, you know, Lahaina, where I represent, needed help. So I was able to connect with two private companies, Trilogy Boating Excursions and Maui Brewing Company. They both got together and got 7 U-Hauls full of supplies and goods. And I hopped on board with one of the U-Haul trucks to get back into Lahaina, because there was a roadblock at Ma'alaya, which is like halfway into Lahaina, and you couldn't get past that roadblock, even if you lived in Lahaina, even if you're a representative of Lahaina. It didn't matter who you were, you could not get through unless you had supplies. So thankfully, you know, these private businesses just jumped into action. It wasn't government. It was these businesses who said, let's help, let's get some trucks together, crew, get it together, let's go. And that's what we did. And so I hitched a ride with Trilogy, and I never left. You know, I've been in West Maui ever since. I was afraid I could never get back home. And in particular, because I knew I needed to be here to help. And so I came home, and there was, I have a rental unit also down the road for me, which thankfully is still okay. But till today, that subdivision still has no power. They finally got water maybe a week ago. And I stayed there for 3 nights in the driveway of my tenants on a dog bed. And there was a hub starting up next door at Lahaina Gateway parking lot. And I just jumped into action and started helping and trying to, you know, get services to people however I could. 3rd day I came back home, and my subdivision had water at that point. About 6 days later, we got power. So where I live, there's 100 homes here that are intact. But the word out there has been through government. Everyone in the community were told that nothing survived below the bypass. And when I came home, I'm like, well, that's not true. I have families across the street from me. The Cabanillas never left the fire. They stayed. They hung in through the fire. They never left the subdivision. And there's 100 homes. And yet, where are the services? Nobody came here for the 100 homes. So I started little hubs within our subdivision, right? Bringing in water and canned goods and whatever people needed. Twin baby infants moved back in with their parents, and they needed formula now. They needed diapers. You know, we have a 9-year kupuna. So, and she needs Ensure. She needed, you know, things, special needs. So it was just like, how was it that government didn't come? So next door to the subdivision, there's a county park, Kilauea Mauka Park. And I went there, and the park is a dirt ball. The county never cut water from it. It just, you would never take your family there to play in this whatever park. And so I popped up a 10 by 10 tent, a fold out table, a chair, and put my banner up that said, you know, State House Representative Elle Cochran. And I went, well, I'm here and I'm going to bring attention to our subdivision. And next thing you know, 4 10 by 10 tents came, a dome. I have a dome, and then a Quonset hut came, and then more and more until, and this probably was about 4 weeks ago. And now we have 10 hoop huts, 4 domes, 50, 30 by foot tent, and all the hubs above me have merged into ours. You know, I mean, I don't blame them, because the hubs above me are people's driveways, people's yards. This is how it started, you know. And they're like, do you mind if we bring everything here since you have this big area? And I'm like, of course not. I go, it's more conducive for a hub than your front yards. So please bring your supplies, and more than happy to, you know, supply everybody now. And that's really how it's grown. And I finally do have a liaison into the county mayor's office, Josiah Nishita, who I worked well with when I was a council member for 8 years at the county. And he came by one day, and I'm like, okay, here it goes, right? The county's now going to say, what are you doing here on county property? And I say, hey, Josiah. And he goes, hi. I go, so I just want to say, I did take over a county park. I didn't ask, but here I am. And you can see I took it over on behalf of this community. You know, I built something where people can come and get services. I have FEMA 7 days a week. I got food and supplies and fresh water, and, you know, you name it, hot meals every day. And he's like, I go, so if you're going to kick me out, you better tell me now, you know? And he's like, no, I came here to ask, what do you need? I said, this park needs water. So about 3 days ago, Department of Water Supply came up and gave us a couple spigots. I can, you know, we're growing things now. I want to plant fruit trees and things that can feed us. Things, obviously, I love making leis, you know, let's grow some flowers and just add life back to this park, which they completely, you know, denied any service to. So I'm happy that the county has allowed the community to utilize this park as a hub and a place for, you know, I'm calling it a wellness recovery park. And I think we're going to be there a long time, because I want a one-stop shop for every single person who needs assistance through their wellness and through the recovery process. You know, we're all dealing with this trauma, the grief, the 5 stages of grief in our own levels. And, you know, it's a place I want people to come and get help. And so it's an ongoing thing. I think even coming up, you know, probably 6 months from now or more, it's still going to be a needed hub, you know, and a resource for people. So I don't know, every day I wake up and it's just face day by day and figure out what the needs are of the people and try and get it to them. There's no how-to book for this. You know, it's such an unfortunate thing, but moving forward, I want to learn from it, obviously. Sorry if you hear my dog barking. Mommy, stop. And so, I'm trying to learn from other jurisdictions, right? Other state, Paradise Fire in California. And how did they do it, right? what did they learn through their recovery efforts? What did they learn? Let's not reinvent the wheel. What would they do differently if they had to do it over again? And these are the kind of things I'm trying to learn from other places. And, you know, and also just it's been a wonderful experience to have our visitors. I know it's really contentious right now with the governor saying he wants to open up West Maui, Lahaina for tourism again. All I can say is that so far, and I don't agree. I don't agree that we should open up the floodgates for tourism right now. The people are still, you know, grieving, and to expect someone who's lost everything, family members included in all this, to go back to a hotel and be Mr. and Mrs. Aloha is just, that's traumatic in itself. You know, to put on that happy face and pretend like, yeah, welcome to Hawaii, you know, and I don't think that's a proper and a respectful way to go about things at this moment. But I have to say, at the hub, every day there's just visitors that come, and they came all this way to help and to give back. And I mean, one church group from Kentucky, 10 of them every day, and Lahaina's super hot and it's really dusty and dirty at the park. But every day they came, they put in a solid 8 hours apiece. And their last day, they were, you know, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, no, thank you. And they went to Costco. They must have bought every single toilet paper, every single paper towel, every single bag of rice, because they just kept, they came back to go, it's our last night, and we wanted to spend everything on the hub, you know, for the people. I'm like, oh my God, you guys have already given so much. And these are the kind of people that have come through daily and just give their time, heart and soul and services. And it's just been a good thing. And so again, it's about the people who have put their energy into with helping others. And I have to say, I mean, yeah, where has government been? You know, as a elected official, I've been really, I just been shocked and dismayed and frustrated and everything, you know, with our own state House of Representatives, with the governor, with the mayor. Now I have a liaison for the mayor's office, but how many weeks in are we? And this just happened, you know, a few days ago. So it's been really frustrating. And again, I just like wake up each day and do what I can in conjunction with just people delivering meals from the restaurants. You know, they started from day one, and it's an inspiration to see that there's still goodness in people's hearts out there, you know. But I want, and the Speaker of the House did create these task force committees, which I'm the co-chair with Nicole Lowen for environmental remediation. And it's been challenging just to figure out what is going on the ground. You know, the whole entire Lahaina is blockaded. The blockades are manned by National Guard. You're not allowed in. And people, my biggest fear was that they were gonna just start bulldozing everything down without letting the individual homeowners and businesses go back to their properties. I mean, every single lot, whether there's a house on it or a building or anything on it, it's just ash. It's still private property. Someone still owns that piece, you know. And so the county has started to let the residents in section by section, thankfully, to just sift through what might be left of their life, you know. And but now is the thought, what's going to happen after everyone goes through everything and it's just ash and dust, and it is hazardous now with everything that got burnt down. Lahaina was an old town, a lot of lead, a lot of asbestos and things. So how are we going to do that? And the fire was so hot that people literally got cremated. You know, there's nothing left of loved ones. And it's just, everyone's distraught. You know, I mean, I look at all of Lahaina as a graveyard, really, you know, and I don't know how we're going to deal with all of that and rebuild upon the loss of our people. You know, I don't agree with the numbers that are out there with and I've said this before, and Governor texted me, how dare I say this, but you know what? I can look at a house down below me and 10 people in one family died in that house. You know, I had a pastor come to me a couple days ago, a couple from his church. They lost 5 of their children. 5. They ended up killing themselves. You know, they're not talking about the secondary deaths that are occurring every day, the suicides. The first week in, I heard of 6 suicides. One man threw himself in front of a speeding car on the bypass. You know, people are not, just because they have a hotel room, you think they're happy sitting there? Because when they leave, that's just a band-aid. When they leave, they got nothing. They got no house, no family. I mean, it is, the stories are just so heartbreaking. I can't even read the full list of people who are gone, because I grew up with so many of them. I've worked with them. And I think this is probably got to be the most horrific way for anybody to die. And yet it happened, you know, and there's a lot of litigation going on. There's just attorneys every day on commercials and the radio and coming to the hub trying to get people to, you know, sue Miko, sue Hiko. I think there's a lot that there's a lot of mistakes that occurred. And we need to get to the bottom of it and hold people accountable for this. Sirens were not, you know, to put on. So there's so much to be done and so many answers that we're still seeking. I don't know if we'll ever, you know, rectify whatever wrongs that were done, because it's so tragic and so huge. It's the biggest disaster that ever happened in American history, you know, and that in itself is just mind-boggling to think, but it's true. We lost so much. Lahaina was such a historical town, the capital of the Royal Kingdom, you know, and it's all gone. So you know, again, I mean, we have to think about the rainy seasons coming, you know, in Lahaina, and the runoff that might occur, ruining all our entire coastline. And that's where the remediation, you know, and recovery efforts come into play. So it's just, I don't know. I just gotta say, you know, thank you folks for your time. And our number one probably need is volunteers. You know, as more, like we had 100 people come through to get supplies yesterday. Today, we decided to close at least 2 days a week, a Thursday and a Sunday. And, you know, we have a great system, but it's unfortunate that people are taking advantage. I get people coming from the other side of the island where they have no damage from any fire, and yet they're coming for supplies. And it's like, you're taking away from someone who's actually in need. I'm sorry, no. You have to go back to Kaului and go shopping at Costco and all your other stuff. That's still, life is normal on that end of the world, you know. But so it's been crazy how people are taking advantage, hopping from hub to hub and just taking and but I think eventually government will probably pull out of some of these other government sanctioned hubs. The one here at Kilauea Malka Park on Lahaina Luna Road I have a feeling will be there a while. As it's in a good location. It's centrally in Lahaina, and it's got a lot of space, and we have a really good system to take care of people. So, you know, that, and I have a board that we send out photos of, and it has our asks of things that we need. I always tell people, don't give anybody cash. You know, cash is not a good thing to give to people. They're finding people OD'd in cars, you know, and so who knows what someone will do with that cash, drugs, you know, and what have you. So I'm like, gift cards, practical gift cards, Lowe's, Home Depot, Costco, you know, Walmart, places like that, one of the grocery stores or something. Those kind of gift cards are good. Ace Hardware. People are starting to rebuild, right? Repatching their rooftops and rebuilding a fence line or whatever. But air purifiers are probably the high ticket items. Air purifiers, the really good cartridge respirators, and it's those are some of the top things as people move back. And the air quality, you know, so far the air quality they say is good, but the difference between what's in our air and someplace like Mexico City or LA, because it's the guy who installed all the air monitors for the county said, look at the numbers right in Lahaina in the total impact zone. Our numbers, anything below 50 is good. Our numbers are ranging in the 1 digit to teens, right? 13, 14, I think when he showed me the numbers. You go to Mexico City, it was like 115. LA, 90s, 80s, right? So, but that's like car pollution and stuff. Here it's the particulate matter of the lead, the asbestos, all those things that are bad and a lot more harmful. But yet, because we haven't had any wind, which has been kind of eerie actually, and no, none of the dust has been kicked up really, our air quality has been okay. And all the properties above me, the water got cleared from the county, so it's safe to drink, they say. My subdivision just below the bypass should have our clearance if it does happen. They said this week sometime or early next week. So hopefully, I personally have been bathing in it and I feel okay. I water my plants. I have water lily ponds with guppies and nothing happened to my guppies, and my water lilies, they need very good clean water, so they seem to be okay too. But it's just a whole different world. I think people have realized, we don't need much, right? I mean, people who lost everything, they're like, well, it was material, it can be replaced. And now if they get back to their properties, they just want a tiny home. They just want something practical and nothing elaborate and whatever. And so I'm really working hard to try and figure out how we can get those here. Tiny home on wheels, the domes. I have examples in the park, and just to show the government and our residents that you can place one of these if you want it temporary or permanent, on your property. So just trying to figure out solutions, but it hasn't been forthcoming through government, because 6 days in, I finally got in touch. Mayor had come through the Lahaina gateway, and I lost my phone in the fire, so I didn't have a phone, but I was borrowing one of my tenants' phone number. And the mayor finally came, and his office guy came to me and said, Ellie, what do you think about, so we have land and we have infrastructure. Should we build? I'm like, why is that a question right now? Yeah, of course you need to build. Well, that was 6 days in, and how many weeks are we in now? And nothing has been done. He goes, well, we've been talking about it around the EOC. I go, why are you just talking about it? Just do it already. Until today, nothing got built. So I'm just, yeah, it's frustrating. And the people have no like light at the end of the tunnel. And unfortunately, many people have left, and it's sad. But again, everyone has to make their own decisions on how they want to move forward in life. But it's very, there's not much here for them to be confident, that the answers are coming quickly or quick enough. So I don't know, that's my story about what had occurred, and just trying to take care of the community as best as I can at this point. So I just appreciate all of your time and you're wanting to hear more about Lahaina. And yeah, so Jean, I appreciate you reaching out to me and having me speak to you.
Very well said. You got time for a few questions? We can
Of course.
come back.
Yeah,
Okay,
of course.
terrific.
Yep.
Before I open it up, I wanted to note that Ellie is always the most elegant in the House of Representatives. She always has a hakule, and as she got it even now, she has her lei on, and she has her flower, and she brings the Hawaiian culture to the epitome for those on the floor to remember, look, this is Hawaii. Let's behave accordingly. But you can also see she has a Harry Truman streak. No nonsense, straightforward. Thank you, Ellie, for doing it. Thank you for having the Ellie Cochran park takeover. I like that. Do what is necessary. I mean, do what is necessary rather than, unfortunately, some of us who are in the Army learn to ask for permission rather than ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And you know how some of that works, because a lot of the things that happened in Maui, which we haven't realized yet, but there's studies that are coming from the Attorney General, from FEMA, from the Congress, and then LA, hopefully some of the working group stuff is going to be revealed. But let's open it, let's open the questions to,
So they can hear you.
okay. Can you guys hear me in the back? Of course you can hear me in the back, of course. We're supposed to, the elected officials are supposed to be able to project with or without microphones. Okay, we're gonna open it up. Kyle has a microphone, so just raise your hand and he'll bring you the
So she can
microphone.
hear you.
And Ellie can hear you through that particular microphone. Okay, all
Yeah.
in the back, in the back. Okay, Ellie, here's question number one.
Okay,
Can you hear me okay?
yes,
Ellie,
I can. Yes,
yeah,
yes, thank you.
Maui can hear you.
Thank you. I've been reading that the incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder following natural disasters can be anywhere from 5 to 40%, depending on the circumstances following the disaster. I also have many patients who are telling me that they're using cannabis under state authorization to treat their PTSD with what they're describing as success. So I'm wondering, I know it's still kind of early, but I'm wondering if you're seeing what the incidence is of PTSD in the survivors and in Maui residents in general. And if there's any discussion about the use of the state authorized use of cannabis for as part of the mental recovery plan for the residents of Maui.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Otto. It's Dr. Otto, right? I recognize the voice. This is a man who practices what he preaches. Did you catch all of that, Ellie?
Yes,
PTSD
yes,
question?
yes, Rep Ward, I did. Thank you, Dr. Otto. And so I am a direct, example of PTSD. The first 2.5 weeks, I was running around totally just frantic, trying to help. And I wasn't eating right. I wasn't sleeping right. And I had literally a body, mind, and spirit breakdown. And I thought I was possessed or something. I mean, I was screaming and I didn't know, but I had a doctor on the line who I just screamed at and never met her. She never met me. And I felt so bad after I had been done doing that to her. And she says, it's all okay. That's natural. I'm like, oh my God, I am so sorry. And so, I was able to they gave me a prescription so I can at least sleep easy at night because my mind would not stop. It was racing. Anytime I closed my eyes, just out of sheer exhaustion. And if I woke up, I felt like I got to get out there and help. I'm an able-bodied. I can't sleep. I got to help. I got to help. And that just wasn't ending. So it was, said, when the plane's going down, they tell you, put your mask on first. They're like, Ellie, you never put your mask on. I'm like, I know. Okay. But I have not heard of cannabis being utilized, the state sanctioning that use. Thankfully, we do have a lot of mobile because our clinics burn. There's no Kaiser, there's no Maui Medical Group. We have a couple minute medical things. We have doctors on call at the hotels, but Kaiser has a mobile van. Maui Health System has a mobile van, and they started coming out right away. The one thing that was neglected were our veterans. And so I brought that to the attention, and then they started having veterans, a self-help veterans table of sorts. But everyone's going through, yes, PTSD and going through their grief and their trauma in different levels, like I have seen. And a lot of people who lost everything are just keeping busy. Eric Zimmerman of Merriman's, the first day he rolls up in the 7th. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, opened up the back of his van. He's got all these hot meals. I'm like, wow. He goes, you hungry? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, this is what I'm doing right now, Ellie. He goes, I lost everything, but you know what? I can get meals and bring them to the people. I'm like, and he's been going. I mean, I just saw him tonight. He brought meals again. And I think that people are just not wanting to face things and just keeping busy as much as they can. But, it's going to hit. I mean, it does hit one way, shape, or form. Your body, your, mentally and spiritually, everything will make you stop and make you face it. And it's not fun. It's not pretty, and it's not easy, but it's something that, Jean introduced me to a girl from Ukraine, and we both could feel that in ourselves without even saying it. With Ukraine and just the destruction of war, this is what it looks like in Lahaina, like a bomb went off all across Lahaina. And that loss, that feeling, and that just, it's a horrible thing. So that's all I know with my firsthand experience with PTSD, and just telling myself I need to pace myself. And what good am I to others if I'm not taking care of myself? But I felt very guilty for taking care of myself, sleeping, eating, whatever. I felt guilty. I wasn't out there helping. I'm the state representative. I got to be there for everyone and do everything. But you know what? Only human, and I can't do it. And so I'm trying to relay that to others that listen, you need to take care of yourself, please. So the park I have massage. We have masseuse sharing their talents there twice a week, which is nice. And people first time having massages, and they're just like whole other zone when they come out of the van. And it's a wonderful little mini bus, an MEO bus, which a guy just took all the seats and everything out of it. And there's like the massage table, it's air conditioned, it's quiet. It's just like a whole other world in there, so those are the kind of things, the one-stop shop for wellness and recovery that the park I envision.
Ellie, you're looking good. You're looking good. You look like you've done very well, even though the PTSD is a very serious thing. It's something that we have to take into consideration. Okay, another question.
Thank you.
We've got right here, Kyle.
Your expression is just absolutely awesome. Just sitting here, we wonder what we can do. So maybe at the end you can tell us what we can do. But I've got a question on the 5 working groups that are going on. I read about them in the paper. They're, I think, they're due out this month, and then the final report next month, something like that. So
Yes.
it seems like that. What good is that going to do when we got the underwriters laboratory here? We've got the attorney general. We've got FEMA. There's 6 more months before all of that is done. And how is anybody going to correlate these 5 working groups with whatever else is going on? Can you characterize them for us a little bit?
Can you guys hear in the back?
Yes.
Did you hear the question? You hearing the question in the back? It's about the working groups that the House of Representatives have put together, and what's the utility, the value, and what's going to be done when they do their reports. Ellie, you want to take that?
Well, I guess I'm just gonna say I think they're very useless.
There's a Harry Truman coming out of there.
right away, I said, well, all of you are on another island. You haven't been here. You don't eat, live, and breathe this Lahaina fire, and yet you all, and this is Speaker and others. I'll share a little bit. They did show up, but they were like, my co-chair said, do you think it'd be productive to have a meeting in Lahaina? I'm like, how is that a question? Yeah, of course. And they're like, well, we refuse. We don't want to come, and we're not going to come. I go, but you're going to make decisions for Lahaina from another island, not coming here to experience any of it, not talking to any of the community members. I go, well, then I'm going to just tell you this right now. That's not going to fly. The people, yeah. So you go ahead and do it that way and see what happens. I go, I have not left here, and I'm only talking to the community. And this is how I learned firsthand what the needs are, so we've been having Zoom meetings with basically, so I called Speaker. I said, Speaker, let me get this straight. You created these task force committees, whatever, working groups. And the basic thought is to observe, learn, get information about the fire, observe. So then when it comes January, we get back into session, we now can make legislation, to in reference to the Lahaina fire. Yeah, I go, and then we wait for decisions in May to finalize, legislation for the fire. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. I go, well, I got real-time issues now. I'm environmental remediation. I got issues right here in front of my face now. I can't wait till January and then for May to finalize anything. I go, that's ridiculous. So that's my thought about those task force, whatever he's calling it. And it's not going to work. So I get it. All our legislators want to draft legislation at the end of the day. They want to learn what's going on. So we had initial meetings with Department of Health, Department of Health, Department of Land and Natural Resource, so we're getting bits and pieces from so far, a couple departments under the governor and seeing where they're at, but there's no real answers, right? They're all just kind of figuring out as they go too. And half the time the people in Lahaina are not supportive of what they're talking about. The people in Lahaina are not supportive of Chair Chang and what her ideas are, right? And so a lot of the Department of Health are still, like you said, there's tests and they still don't have answers. So what's gonna come out in a few weeks from now or end of next month? A draft report of what, for what? Personally, I don't think it's gonna help in any way. What may help is we learn from this disaster and, train our fire department differently, do, clear brush, which they should have been doing, and create fire breaks or have evacuation routes or whatever, build smarter and underground utilities, whatever it is. But those are things we've already been talking about. So I'll share real briefly. The other day, I was very excited that Speaker Psyche texted me and said, I'm coming to Lahaina, Elle, and I want to come and visit you at your hub. And I'm like, oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you so much. And so I was anticipating a one-on-one with Speaker to share my ideas and my real-time issues and seeing how the state can help with it. And he came in. I'm like, are you coming? And he came in and he had probably 10 other state representatives, right? And they walked into the gate, didn't even really walk in, but standing all by the gate. They brought me 2 boxes of malasadas and said, here, Elle, hi. And I'm like, oh, hi, welcome, and thinking I'd tour them around or whatever. And they gave me the malasadas. They're like, yeah, we're on our way to catch a plane. And basically that was it. And they left. I'm like, what was that? So that was my visit from leadership, and that was very disappointing to say the least. So I'm trying to continue that dialogue with him, in particular, Speaker Psyche, and to see, I can't just have him walk away like that. He needs to hear the needs of the people, and how can the state help now, not January. So that's what I think about those task force that he created.
Elle, thank you for speaking the facts as they are. As I interviewed on my radio show, Senator McKelvey, he said the same thing. If you're going to do anything, come and talk to the people of Maui first. I'm on the quote task force or the working group on employees and small business. We have had one meeting, and it was a briefing by Yuhiro, DBED, and HTA. Yuhiro said, and HTA and others were saying, well, it's going to be 2 years before you can start rebuilding. I said, whoa. I said, can I challenge that? 2 years before you start rebuilding? And it was like, you say that in Maui, and Elle, this is for you. I'd say you get stoned if you told the people in Maui it's going to be 2 years before they start building. There are people who are going to go to Home Depot, or they're going to start doing stuff now the DIY way. So I share your frustration, the way that the lethargy of the bureaucracy seems to be moving on this. But let me add one positive point. I'm probably the only guy in the legislature who, when Hurricane Iniki was on, what we did, Elle, and this is for you, we gave them everything that Kauai wanted. So what you guys who represent Maui should do is saying, here's our priorities. And it doesn't have to do anything with those working groups, but the amount of damage, $6 billion is estimated for Maui. $3 billion was for Kauai. But those funds, in fact, that's probably the best thing that your colleagues that give you malasadas can do. Just give me the money. We don't need the other thing. Okay, next question. Here we go. Mr. Edward Jones.
I'm Edward Jones from Kalama. Is it
Hello.
working? Okay.
Yes, she can hear you.
From Kalama Valley. My questions are around and first of all, I'm numb. I can't even begin to understand the grief that you're going through. My question is about telecommunications, specifically broadband telecommunications. How did that play out during the fire? Did it fail? Did it work? And the reason why I'm asking is when we lose power in Kalama Valley, we lose broadband. So if there's a structure to structure fire going on in our community, we're not going to know about it until it's too late. So want to learn from your experience and what happened there, and was it an issue there in terms of broadband connectivity? If you had a cell phone, were you able to learn about what's going on, run from the fire? I'm asking too many questions. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. And you're spot on. Actually, everything failed. Everything failed. There was no power. There was no news on TV. There was no cell phones. So connectivity went down. No sirens were sounded. So literally this fire, there was 80-mile gust winds, right? And you hit fire with that, it just went like so fast. People literally did get burned in their cars. The road out here, Lahaina Luna Road, was bumper to bumper. And unfortunately, yes, one story was grandma and grandpa called their granddaughter and said, we're gridlocked, fire's coming, we're saying goodbye. And they did find them hugging each other, burnt in the car. I mean, there's just endless stories like that. Down along Front Street, you know, and Old Lahaina was all wood. And it was like just kindling, right? When that strong wind and fire came, no warning once again. And people jumped into the ocean. You know, it's right. It's kind of like, you know, it's right. Kind of like Kona. Lahaina reminds me of Kona a lot, where the main road is along the water side of the wall. And people treaded water for hours. And a lot of them didn't make it and got swept out to sea. We'll probably never find them again. So it had come so fast. And yeah, there was no warning, unfortunately. So, and then connectivity, obviously days after, it's still down, right? Where I live, I called Spectrum, I think a week or two ago, and I said, when can Kilauea Mauka expect, you know, cable and Wi-Fi again? They go, we can't tell you that. Everything around you burnt. All the infrastructure is gone. We don't know. So there's been a group called Red Lightning, and they've been going around to everywhere and setting up Starlinks. So right now, this is how I'm with you, is because I have a Starlink in my driveway and I have Starlinks up at the park. So when you're there, you have connectivity. That's number one this government should have done, you know, is get that up and going, because what happened was all across the island, nobody had any information. It was just try and figure it out as you go, and it just was chaos. A lot of chaos, a lot of unknown, a lot of frustration, a lot of challenges. Until today, it still is. Like the subdivision down the road where my tenants are, still no power. So obviously they still have zero connectivity, you know, so things are not quite getting to normal just yet. And but I'll tell you, I'm going to get this entire neighborhood, the 100 homes, on Starlink. So when Spectrum does come online, we're not going to have to pay them a bill. You know, we'll just divvy up the few $100 to run our Starlinks, and we'll be fine without them.
Ellie,
You
let
know,
me
and
interrupt you on that one. How much is the Starlink? Is that the Elon Musk one you're talking about?
Yeah. Supposedly it's like $200 a month or something. So divided by 100 people, you know, we paid $180 per person for Spectrum. So yeah, I feel like this is teaching us how to become self-sufficient, how to get off the grid, you know. So at the park, I just had a whole Tesla setup delivered. The installer was here today to measure things, and they're going to put up a whole Tesla wall that supposedly is going to be able to run 5 homes. I'm like, whoa, put that over by my house. But you know, this park is just going to be fully powered. You know, I got refrigerators and freezers because we got fresh produce, we got fresh meat, you know, and stuff we're feeding people. I got a couple grills. We want to start cooking hot meals and stuff. So we need power. Right now we're just running generators. Out of my pocket every day, I fill up gas cans because we have to keep the refrigerators going with the generators. And that's probably one of the asks is some gas cards. And phone cards, people need to keep their phones alive. So phone cards, people don't have jobs, it gets pricey. I lost my phone, I think it was an iPhone 11 or something. I reactivated an iPhone 8, and I think we're in iPhone 16s now. So I got a good old 8 going on, but it seems to work okay. So yeah, connectivity, I think in any disaster, that's the number one thing government needs to remember to put up and running instantly so information gets dispersed across.
Amen to that. I see you're still standing. Edward, do you have a follow-up question, or you're just, you're
Yes.
intrigued by what you just told you?
Totally.
Yeah.
So, Rep. Cochran, when you do make your way back to this island so that you represent your district here, yeah, I'd like to meet with you on this subject face to face and Rep. Ward and see if there's some legislation. I'm thinking that if the broadband providers so much as to provide incident reports and general disclosure about the configuration for emergency purposes, backups, Starlink backups, power, battery backups on things, we would get to where we need to in terms of being more resilient with our broadband. I need more information on that, but it's probably worth a one-on-one discussion if that's okay with you.
We will set that up when you come to the big square building. Thank you, Edward.
Mahalo very much.
By the way, what kept the Ukrainians talking to each other is the same thing that Representative Cochran is talking about, that kept at least some semblance of communications on Maui. So Starlink, I wish it was a little less expensive. I would drop my Spectrum at a drop of a hat. I'm not very fond of that. Okay, some of the controversial things. I know we have medical experts and we have biosecurity experts. Elle, a question to you, but I'm channeling Lisa Bishop. We know that there are some chemicals that are bad for the environment. We know there's some chemicals that are bad for just about everything that human beings have. There's a controversy about the stuff that they're spraying on all of the dust called soil tech or something to that effect. Some say it's not biodegradable, it's plastic. Some say you're taking all the iwi and the bones and putting them into kind of a place where they're going to be on a lift somewhere and thrown into the garbage. What's the latest on the soil tech? And I know there's a couple of city council colleagues that have challenged the EPA and they haven't got a response. Could you give us an update on that, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it's more widely spoken about. 5 days in, I'd say around there, a group called Samaritan's Purse. They came because this is what they do. They go behind fires. They've been doing this for 20 years. They take people back to their properties, sift through the debris safely. And they told me then after that, Ellie, they put down this congealing agent, like a gluing substance, right? To keep all that hazardous ash down and everything. Soil tack, tackifer, whatever. So when I heard that, no one else was talking about it. And I started to shoot out this sort of alert to the community, any text contacts I had in my old phone and whatever. And I got a really quick response from the county department, the mayor's office. And they told me, Ellie, you need to get your facts straight and get your information right, because we heard you're starting to incite a riot in Lahaina. I said, what are you talking about? I go, well, you're talking about this tackifer and all this stuff that's going to be sprayed. I go, well, it is part of the process and it's going to occur. And if you don't let the people back to their properties before that goes down, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'll tell you what, there's going to be some kind of civil disobedience or overthrow or whatever you want to call it. I go, I'm trying to avoid a riot on behalf of this government right now. And the governor dismissed me and everybody from the top on down. And I'm like, you need to listen. So finally, this is where they're opening up the different zones in Lahaina, letting people go back and sift through. And this group is able to go and walk people in, sift through their stuff. That day we had the fire, there were 2 other fires going on Maui too. Kula had a fire, and so did Kihei, but obviously Lahaina was the worst. So our resources, firemen were dispersed all over the place. That was one challenge. So this group has already walked through the 38 homeowners up in Kula, sift through their properties. The challenge with Lahaina is everything's a lockdown zone because we have casualties. Kula had no fatalities up there. So the individual homeowners could go back at their own leisure, bring in whoever they want, sift through their debris and stuff. So that's that soil tax stuff has polymers in it. They say it's biodegradable to a certain extent, but there's also plastics in it. So, and again, it's a congealing, gluing agent. So from end to end of Lahaina, they're just going to supposedly put this stuff down. It's still up in the air whether they're going to do this or not. But if you don't do it, then how are you going to keep that dust from flying up in the air? Because when you start bulldozing and, using earth movers to remove all the hazardous waste and debris and stuff, that you have to have some type of, so some people are saying, well, just water it down, like on construction sites, the dust, you water it down. I don't know if that's going to be enough. So that's still up in the air. I'm told through other fire places that had fire that tackifer and that soil tack is controversial. Not everybody puts that stuff down, but I think for us being so close to the ocean and having a lot of environmental potential, environmental effects, bad effects, we have to think about that. But I don't know what the answer is because like you said, the EV, right? The ash, the people who just got basically cremated on their properties, you're just going to take all that off as debris and trash and go take it to the landfill, so they're talking about 3 different places to remove this stuff. And at the same time, wherever they put it, create like a memorial of sorts. I'm like, what? Trash, a garbage dump / memorial? I mean, how is that going to work?
Did
So
they
I have
listen?
no idea. I
Did
have
they
no
listen? Did they listen to you and let everybody go back and inspect before they
Yeah,
actually?
yeah,
put-
yes,
regulated
and
it?
that-
Okay.
Yup, they understood the public outcry that was going to occur if they didn't. So whoever, I don't know, whoever got through to them, it wasn't me personally, but I'm sure I started that conversation. And now, yes, it's slowly, they're heading north to south, it seems. And slowly but surely they're letting people in lot by lot by lot. And it's working. So I'm happy for that. And it's a way of closure, right? For everybody.
Yeah,
People just want to
exactly.
see, is my house there? Is it not? They don't even know. They haven't been able to get back to their home sites. So that's where we're at with all of that.
Okay, we have a follow-up question to that. Lisa Bishop, across the way here. Lisa's the president of Friends of Hanama Bay, so she knows a little bit about what she talks about.
Hi, Ellie. Good to see you
Awesome.
again.
Hi, yeah, aloha.
I wanted to follow up on that. You mentioned that they're talking about removing the debris. And we've been trying to track what EPA and then Army Corps of Engineers is planning on doing with that debris because it is hazard waste. And so we thought that it was supposed to be removed from the Lahaina burn sites and then eventually taken off of Maui and shipped somewhere in Conus or somewhere outside of Hawaii. But we're also hearing that it's just going to be going to a landfill and going to be sitting there until someone decides where it's going to be shipped to. So, and if it's going to be sitting there in a landfill, there's huge chance of it being leaching into the ground and eroding into the nearshore marine environment. Have you heard any updates as to what Army Corps is intending on doing with that?
There's like 3 options, right? They're talking about 3 options. One, yeah, so US Coast Guard has a barge out front, and to remove, mainly that one's for dredging Lahaina Harbor. About 90 boats melted together in that harbor. So they want to retrieve it all, dredge out the harbor, put all that stuff on a barge and take it away. That they're not saying where, I don't know where. The land debris, you know, the soil tackifer, whatever they're gonna spray down, and then scrape everything down to healthy soil, they say. I heard it's about 8 inches. Someone said yesterday they heard 5 feet, which, you know, a lot of our lands have EV from back in the day. As I said, it's, you know, the royal capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom and stuff. There's house lots, old style house lots. You buried your family, you know, in your backyard, in your side yard, in your front yard. That's how things happened around here. So that's going to be super controversial. But the 2 places on Maui, one is the Central Maui landfill, which is, you know, in the Kahului or Maupio, Pulehenui, that area, which is central. And, you know, and as it is, we have probably 5 Kolos landfills there. I mean, we can't just keep digging holes on our island and filling it with trash. You know, so that's one option. And then the other thought is Olowalu. There we have a landfill that's been closed there for decades. So next to it, there's and how we used to fill the landfill was with cinder. So there's a big cinder mountain. You know, they would scrape it, collect the cinder and fill, you know, put cover fill on the dump site. So they're calling it the cinder pit and put it in the cinder pit over there in Olowalu. I heard briefly, but it hasn't been talked about recently, is Ukumehame firing range, which is if you're heading out of Lahaina and you're heading onto our Poly Road, you know, the windy road with this one tunnel. Just before that, it's really a wetland over there. You know, it's parts of it is probably below sea level. I think it's fill, and they want to put it there. Like, well, that's not a good spot either. Like you said, you know, being it's a wetland, it's gonna leach into our oceans and not good for environment. So maybe that one's off the drawing board, but I did hear that initially. But the other day, the updated, the options, Central Maui landfill and Olowalu were talked about, but the Ukumehame thing was not spoken about. So maybe they decided not to do that. I don't know. Again, there's no solid answer. There's no clear, you know, there's no clear answer at this point. It's just a bunch of talk and a bunch of maybe this, maybe that. So I don't know. But here's the biggest fear right now with the environmentalists and the marine biologists and all the people is, should the rains come, which they are, you know, the county has put 8-inch wattles down along the coastline, around the little storm drains, along whatever, you know, not enough. And they're the like tube sock things you guys might have seen around, and they stuff them with mulch. And so the water, the runoff permeates through it, but I guess gets cleaned and sort of, you know, through that permeation and stuff. So 8 inches is just not much. Tapani Vuri of Maui Ocean Center, a bunch of the other Tova Calendar with Ridge to Reef, and a lot of the environmentalists, marine biologists and people are talking 32-inch wattles. And we're talking 3 to 4 deep of those, like 30, you know, huge ones, not the little 8-inch ones. And so that's been discussed. I've been talking about it till I'm blue in the face too, because I think that's what we need. I mean, we've needed it. And hopefully we can get the $4.5 million in order to do this whole process. Construction companies have been talked about. Everybody's on board. But, you know, we got to have government, U.S. Army Corps, whoever, EPA, to say, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's make it happen. Nobody on that level has agreed or even, we haven't even reached anybody to talk about it at this point, I believe. So we got to do this, or we're going to lose our ocean. We're going to lose it.
Lisa, you have a follow-up? Okay, a follow-up question from Lisa.
Tapani has a donation of the fill
Good.
for the wattles, and they still can't get approval to get it done. And so it's just been very frustrating, because the plan is there and the donation to construct the wattles and to fill them and to get them out there, and there's been no response from either the county or the state. And so, so I empathize
Okay,
with
Ellie,
you.
get your waddles
So,
together.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that update, Lisa. And I will make sure I'm gonna, whatever, scream from the top of my lungs wherever and make it
I
happen.
mean,
It
you know,
has to happen.
I
There's
told
no,
him,
there's no way around it.
no,
have
I
to-
told him to talk to Ed Sniffen, the Department of Transportation, the state. And it's also been elevated to Blake Oshiro,
Over at
the governor's
office.
senior counselor,
Okay.
and nothing has come out of the governor's office either. So I'm sorry, I have one more comment to make. Ellie, what is your staff here on Oahu doing to help you do your job as a state representative for Lahaina?
You know, it's hard because he's not of the island, he's not familiar, and on another island kind of thing. Basically just, you know, putting the information out, but who goes to a state government website? I mean, really, you
Right.
know. So not a whole lot. What I am proposing to speaker at this time, Jean, you know, if you can help me out, is I want to hire a staffer here on this island. You know, I really need somebody here now. And
Can you-
so I can follow up on things like this, you know, like Tapani's got the money, let's get this moving. Let me, you know, do I need US Army Corps? Do I need to talk to FEMA? Who do I need to, but I don't got time to write these letters. I don't have time to follow up. You know, I mean, I have meetings all day long, but then I'm like, yeah, okay, great, thanks. You know what? I need like a secretary to take notes and then the follow-up questions and the follow through. I have legislative funds left for the end of the year, and I have someone here on Maui who was my legislative analyst once upon a time as a council member. She knows how to draft legislation. She knows how to do the job. So I'm praying that speaker will see that this is needed, and it's an emergency reason. It's not like, oh, now every other, you know, representative should have a area, person. This is, I think, a lot different. That this disaster, the biggest disaster in human, American history occurred, and I need some help here on the island. So,
Good answer.
but yeah,
Good
so
response.
that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm thinking, so I had General Hara come and visit with all his top brass. Gene's on the minority caucus, but anyways, majority caucus had a meeting with Reverend General Hara, Brigadier General, and all these top whoever's. And I was like, well, I couldn't be there because I'm busy here. And so when Rep Bellotti walked in, she saw all those people were on Zoom. So she asked leadership, hey, can you send Ellie the link so she can be part of the meeting? And leadership said, no, members need to be present. And so at that time, I told Della Bellotti, I have written questions. Could you ask General if I can send it to him in writing? He will respond to me in writing, because I want black and white answers. I don't want this I said, she said thing, or I don't recall, I didn't say that stuff. And he said, no problem. I'll respond to all her questions, because I had like 50 of them. And he goes, and I will also go to Maui and go to Lahaina and visit her personally, which he did. And I was just so grateful. And, he made some differences here. And when I told him, I said, General, when you had that meeting with the majority caucus and all of you were on Zoom, leadership said that I couldn't get on Zoom because I had to be present at the meeting. He went, well, that's bullshit. I said, yeah, it is. And so this is how they're treating me, General. And he so I'm going to ask General if he could put in a few words on my behalf to say, because he came here, he saw the enormity of my kuleana, and that as added help, would be beneficial to the greater community and everything. And, I'm hoping he could put in a few words that says, yeah, we see that you should allow her to do this, but I don't know. That's, that was a thought I had today. And I'm going to ask, no harm in asking, right? He could say, I don't want to be a part of that, but I think he's going to want to. So it's,
Good for you, Ellie. Good for you.
yeah, that's
The
my thought.
pressure in the legislature, let me footnote, to go along and get along is really, 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 really strong. So Ellie, you're a brave young lady, quite frankly. To do that is not a piece of cake. Okay, we have another question in the back.
Two questions. With the fire, do you think Bisson is up to the job? And do you think Victorino or Arakawa could have done a better job? And how, and the second question is, did Maui County do the right thing suing Hawaiian Electric?
Yeah, good question. You're breaking up. Okay.
First one, Bisson and Miss.
It,
Victorino.
it broke up a little.
Okay, did Mayor Bisson, is he up to the
if
job
I-
with the fire destruction? And compared to Victorino and Arakawa, do you think which one would have done the best job? And the second question is, did Maui County do the right thing suing Hawaiian Electric?
Good questions.
Okay, so personally, you know, I think Bisson, he was a judge for 33 years, did a great job. He's never been in politics before. I think he is over his head. I mean, who knew to prepare for something like this? We're all over our head. You know, we all, but I'm not too proud to say, I don't know. You know, I'm out there asking questions. I'm trying to get guided and learn from others. I think, and I've said it the first week to Washington Post or something. I said, right now, decisions are run by ego and testosterone, unfortunately. And people are just too proud to say they don't know right now. Right. And I think a lot, the news has been just minimizing and saying everything's okay when it's not okay at all. And so I've been speaking otherwise, and that's why I get the backlash and stuff. But I'm gonna be open and transparent and speak my piece and relay what's really going down. On the question about Victorino, I think Victorino, I ran against him unsuccessfully, but I think because he had gone through COVID, that he would have been able to deal with this better. You know, he had gone through that whole shutdown and what have you. I think he probably would have been able to think better on his feet and figure out solutions to our tourism issues and what have you. So again, I think Arakawa, I don't think he would have been good at all. So that's just my thing with Arakawa on every level. But I think Victorino could have done a better job. And right now, I think Bisson, well, being that he allowed one of his office people to speak to me and have like a liaison of sorts, I guess he's coming around. All I can say is that I'm grateful for that happening, because in turn, I'm better to assist and help this community because of that one relationship. You know, it was just been like banging my head and trying to say, plead and beg and anybody to listen and anybody to help, and nothing was happening, but now things are happening. So, hey, better late than never, I suppose. So we'll just have to keep moving on. As for county suing HECO, yeah. I've been talking to fire investigators. I've been talking to lawyers. They're everywhere right now. And I don't know, even our own Senator Gil Keith Agaran resigned from being a legislator to be more in his attorney, seat. So everyone's trying to get a piece of this pie, with the fire thing. And I think there were some mistakes that were done by MECO. I was up at 4 a.m. watching MECO or HECO get grilled by Congress the other morning, and they need to bring them back, because the hard questions that were being asked, they had no answer. They were her, I forget her name, Kimura. She was slick. She was good. I see why they put her up there to be grilled by Congress. Half the questions, it was like, I don't have that answer right now. We'll have to get back to you on that. But it was like simple, like, what happened? Where were you when this went down? What did you guys prepare? You already had high wind warnings days in advance. What's your protocol? What do you do? When you get these warnings, do you prepare somehow, or just what happens? And she just couldn't really pinpoint, have specific answers. And to me, we didn't learn much with that company, and I think we need to continue to grill them. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, they had all reason, what they did or didn't do played a big part in what had happened here. So there's a lot of different conspiracy theories. And the one thing that I learned that I never heard of, because Lahaina, once upon a time, right? You've heard in the history maybe that it was the Venice of the Pacific. You know, we have in our graveyard, our 200-year-old graveyard, when we dig down, we haven't had to bury anybody in recent times, but once you go down 6 feet, I was told by Uncle Earl Kukihiko, you hit water. And there's a lot of water down there, you know? And so with that being said, supposedly that water underground, all of Lahaina was like electrified or whatever. And it had fed that electricity in the saltwater intrusion below the surface, had added more power to the fire. One guy who has a glass blowing business down the road here, he goes, that fire had to be 1800 to 2000 degrees. And that's unheard of in a fire versus a regular fire. So something exacerbated the heat of this fire. And that's where the whole laser beam thing comes into play. People are talking about and all that, but it just wasn't your normal fire. So where all that pans out, it's going to be years before we get any type of, you know, solid, I think, information and sort of final, you know, final decisions. But it's, yeah, the thing that I want most people, anybody who's from Maui or resident of Maui and a taxpayer, if you're thinking of suing Maui County, you're suing yourselves, right? Because your taxpayer is what funds this county. It's like at the end of the day, if any of there's 10 lawsuits against the county right now. If any or one of those lawsuits win, this county will be bankrupt. So then what happens to our town? What happens to us, the people? I mean, you just bankrupted our county. That's not going to help any of us. So I wish people who may be suing the county itself, I rather get us all to the table and talk it out. You know, as a mediator by training, I am more about mediate, don't litigate. And I wish those 10 lawsuits could do that. So I don't know where that's going to go. But I do know that there are many people, personal level, are going to be suing HICO or MICO right now.
Yes, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to come
Yeah.
out. Okay, follow up. Other questions that I'm going to insert the one that I have, and that's a controversy of to open or not to open. That is the question. Those who want to say don't do tourism now, and I think you hinted at saying, you know, you may re-traumatize some, or because Yuhiro said, and I think DBID backed them up in HTA, somebody's got to be able to get back to work, to get normal, to get money back into the economy. So it's kind of like one and the other. And what's your advice on that one, Representative Cochran?
Yeah, in my letter to the governor, you know, Gene, you may recall during budget session, governor was giving $200 million, you know, a pot of money that he could spend however he wished. And according to research, he hasn't spent any of it. So the letter points to him utilizing that fund to help assist people, like during COVID, a type of program, you know, to help people with benefits and to help pay their bills and what have you. You know, but I do feel, because I talk to a lot of the harbor commercial boaters and companies, they want to get back up and running. Whale season is around the corner. They have a plan, you know, to share slips in Ma'alaya because their slips in Lahaina are gone. You know, reopening Mala Wharf can assist too. So, you know, I think my thought is the other rest of the islands, South Makena, Kihei, Wailea, you know, let tourism flourish, you know, on the other parts of the island. And boats, the harbor people can utilize those tourists, you know, for their businesses. But again, I'd like to get, if there was a way to only get the type of tourists to come to West Maui, to Lahaina area, to be part of the recovery process. You know, I mean, people are talking about, well, let's take back all the ag lands around here. It should have been farming anyways, which is true. And let's do reforestation. Let's start growing agriculture again to be self-sufficient. We're learning that we're dependent on canned goods. We're dependent on all this stuff. And let's rebuild Lahaina how we want it, right? Governor said that's what he wants to pursue. So here's the talk of the town is we want to do things with our mountainsides that were fuel for the fire. And now, you know, make it so it's all green again and make sure the water flows and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's, again, I think I mentioned it in my opening statements that if people are given the option, hey, if we can take care of any type of bills you have, you know, subsidize you, would you rather be taken care of that way, take care of family, take care of your personal needs right now with your grief and trauma, whatever you're working through? Because I'll tell you, the parents are trying to hold it together in front of their kids. You know how hard that probably is, and they need respite, you know, too. Kids are going to be going back to school mid next month. And again, to be Mr. and Mrs. Aloha and put on that happy face for the visitors. I worked in the visitor industry for 33 years. I wouldn't want to be put in that position at this time. That'd be really, really hard to do. And so, you know, it's a tough call, but I think phasing in is one way. And I think this mayor finally decided, instead of just letting every hotel open up and just book as many rooms as you can, start farthest north away from Lahaina first, which is the Ritz-Carlton, Montage, and some of the condos out there, you know, that's a possibility. I had a person who got off work at the Ritz, so she's back to work. They have the essential, some people already cleaning rooms and whatever they're doing. She got off work at the Ritz. She came through. She's leaving Lahaina to go back home to Kahului, but stopped at the hub to get supplies. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You just got off of work at the Ritz. You're on your way home in Kahului, and you're picking up supplies in Lahaina. I'm like, no, this is for Lahaina people. She go, oh, I come back tomorrow. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you don't come back ever, because this is not for Kahului people, you know? I mean, I get it. There's displaced all over the island. And so, but there are hubs in that end of the world, you know? So I understand now things are downsizing, and within 6 to 7 months, government will probably pull out of every single resource. And I know, as long as if I can stay at Kilauea Mauka Park, I'm not leaving, and it's going to be a resource until, as long as we need it to be a resource.
Good for you.
So that's what that's going to be.
Good for you.
I don't know. It's a tough call with the tourism thing. We want to be creative and diversified. We've always said it. And I thought we never should have opened up the floodgates after COVID. We should have been thinking all along during closure, how we're going to diversify our economy and not be reliant only on tourism. And here's our opportunity again.
My favorite subject, diversifying the economy. You're going to get me started, and then we're never going to end. I was going to have for our last call question before we wrap up. That's the lady in the middle, in the back.
What are your thoughts on fast tracking the permitting process, and optimistically, when do you think the first structure will actually go up, you know, for the residents and for the commercial?
Yeah. Thank you. So I do know I missed the meeting tonight. There's a project for 1,800 units, I believe, 1,800 units, rentals and, you know, single family and multifamily structures below Kapalua Airport out north. And this project has been in the making for decades, but finally Paul Chang purchased it. So they're fast tracking, like he's supposed to be breaking ground. I think that's what the meeting was tonight about. And this is where the temporary permanent school is going to be built on this property too. So first thing, before all this happened, there's a project for affordable rentals along the bypass, and the fire didn't get it. So I know the developer, the foreman, whatever, property manager, this is Goodfellow Brothers project. And I called them and I said, when are you going to get your project up and going again? Because fire didn't damage it. You could really get your people back and working. We need those units more than ever right now. So he said, yeah, we're working on it, Ellie, as quick as we can. We got to make sure the air is safe, the blah, 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 safe for the workers. I believe they're back to work. So again, this is what, I don't know, 7-8 weeks later, they're finally getting back. So I know projects they were ongoing were already in the coming down the pipeline are now moving. As in permitting for buildings that you know, were destroyed, that's gonna be a while. I mean, the cleanup has to occur first and all that kind of stuff, you know. I don't think you'll ever be able, oh, well, we don't care. We're not, you know, we're okay with the hazardous waste on our property or whatever. We want to plop up a tiny home on wheels or something. I don't think that's kind of stuff's gonna happen. But yeah, we need to look at tiny home, alternative type of dwellings, right? Or people's lots that have a lot of acreage, that you can put up a tiny home, or you can put up a dome home, or whatever these new type of dwellings. You know, the county has to allow that. I totally agree. I don't know where they're at with that. But the person that I want to hire, she worked for the planning department. And so currently she's already just on her own time is going to start keeping me in the loop with all the meetings and all the decisions being made on the county's behalf. But you got to remember, this hasn't been publicly really out there being told, but I'm going to tell you guys, because as Jean says, I'm open and transparent. This mayor removed the powers of the council for 2 months. On August 15th,
You
he
faded out.
just
You fa-
completely removed the powers.
You say that again,
Hear
just,
me?
yeah,
Can you hear me, Jean?
We can hear you, but there was when you
Can
said
you-
move the powers of something, we didn't catch that.
On August 15th, the fire happened.
Well,
Okay, the mayor removed the powers of 9 county council members. Remove their powers of the council.
why?
I don't know if it got reinstated. What that means is they could not make any decisions. They couldn't vote on anything, but they had a meeting to hear the entire community, which I thought was good of them to do, because that was not easy. It was 11 hours, I think, of testimony the other day. And, but that's all they can do, is have hearings and hear people. They can't make any vote. They can't do votes. They couldn't make any decisions. So I don't know. I was pretty flabbergasted about that. I had to go grab my charter, you know, from the county. But where does it say that? I couldn't find it. I'm like, is this right? Is this legal? I don't even know. But he did it, and it had occurred.
Wow.
So that was something new where someone, I mean, what if the governor, I mean, Jean, the governor can just say no powers, take all the powers away from the state legislature? You know, like, huh? Can you
Then
do
they
that?
should
I
get
don't-
rid of all of us if we would allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and
that
I
is
told
surprising.
the council members, that I was a council member. If I was one of 9, I would not stand for that. That's just me, you know. But
You
yeah.
heard it
So
first here from Ellie's mouth to your ears. Ellie, I don't see any other hands for questions, but I'm going to ask you one last controversial question. What's with this 90-day mortgage holiday, which if you've lost your house, you lost your job, and you get 90 days mortgage where you don't have to pay for 90 days? How can people even consider just 90 days? It seems so cruel and unusual.
yeah, I know that 90 days, what? That's not enough.
It's yeah,
People-
exactly.
You know, so here's an example. Insurance assessors are going into the different lots, right? People's insurance assessors. And one family was offered $250,000, you know, and this is like just here in Lahaina, where majority of our properties were, you know, I think the area median value was 1.2 million or something. It was ridiculous. And $800,000-$900,000 were tear downs. You know, these were not nice, good homes that you can just waltz in and live in. I mean, you needed to tear those homes down and rebuild, and you're paying at least $1 million for that lot. So this insurance company is like, yeah, we'll pay you 250,000. And you know, the family were like, well, we got nothing else. That looks good to me. We'll take it and just move away to somewhere or go back to the Philippines and live like a king and queen for that kind of money. But you know, that's not right. As I understand, there's a moratorium right now on signing titles and deeds over. You cannot. I don't know how long it's going to last, but supposedly nobody can sell anything, whether you want to or not. You just cannot right now. Mortgages. So then with that being said, a lot of people are being offered monies that aren't even to cover their mortgages. So you're going to walk away taking this money, but yet hold the mortgage for something you don't even have anymore. Your house is burned down.
Exactly.
So I don't know how that's going to work. I
Yeah.
mean, the banks have to have a heart or something. I mean, I know they're in it for business, but that's just not right. I mean, can we do some kind of legislation? I think, you know, we did a foreclosure thing. We helped with foreclosures once upon a time. We got to think of how we're going to protect people with this because it's not panning out.
Exactly.
The dollars and cents are not adding up for the people. And it's literally highway robbery or whatever you want to call it. It's just not right.
We will work together
So
on that one.
We gotta,
No
yeah,
question
put our
whatsoever.
heads together to address that. And hopefully
Any other
governor will, or
Closing questions. I'm going to make a closing comment
Yeah,
unless someone has a
yeah, I
question.
appreciate that.
We have
So,
one more.
I just
one more
want to
question.
briefly,
Ellie, one more
Go ahead.
question, if you will, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, Ellie. Thank you for sharing your story. You are a true leader. God bless you. Do you have any pictures to
Sure.
share of what your hub looks like?
Pictures of your hub, Ellie. Have you got anything to share?
I don't know how to do that. I don't know
Okay.
how to do that right now. I can send it to you,
Send them to,
Jean.
send them
I'll
to,
show you.
we will get them out
Yeah.
to those who want to see it, because it's got constant huts like this. It's, I mean, this is a mini government.
Yeah,
we're
it's
talking
like a
about
little
here.
mini city.
This is Mayor Cochran of the.
And it's just,
Cochran.
yeah.
And we have
No, no,
one,
no,
okay,
no.
we do have another final question.
Ellie, Ted Ralston again from Mamanalo. So totally appreciate
Hello.
your candor and your expression. What I'm doing is not necessarily important. We're working with the Native Hawaiian organizations that are trying to come together and keep this thing culturally centric in terms of the response and educationally oriented and things like that. Is this being recorded? This what you showed us tonight would be so useful in educating and giving awareness to people that we're working with.
It is.
Is it being recorded?
Yeah, it's recorded. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. End of
Recorded.
question. Thank you very much. Aloha.
You're welcome. Aloha.
Thank you for that comment. We like to bring value added to the community. We do have another final question, Ellie. Thank you
That's
for,
okay. Yeah, that's all
thank you
good.
for your time. Your time is valuable.
Yeah,
Please,
no,
please proceed.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Really good talk. You're talking about communication. Is the press coming and talking to you and seeing what's actually going down? We look at the news and it does look like happy talk. Can you get anyone to come talk to you?
Thank you. So I for weeks I was like staying clearly away from local news just because I was seeing how things were sugar coated, the real stories weren't being told, things were minimized. I think it still happens. So I went outside, not just of the state, but of the country. You know, I was like, I'm not trusting any of this. And so my first interview was with German TV. I did Japanese
We might even co-sponsor.
TV, the biggest national Japanese TV. And the reason they were going by and they saw my Okinawan flag flying in my hub, they're like, hey, Okinawa. They came in, I'm like, hi. And so I spoke, I've been speaking with them continuously. I reached out, I spoke to LA Fox News because I like Marla Tellez. I thought, you know, when I met her, I had a good feeling and that she was, you know, cut to the chase and is not gonna, you know, edit me or whatever. So I've been open and out front with her. And that's when I got a text message from Governor Green saying, how dare you say those things on Fox News, Ellie? You're not helpful at all. And I'm like, just telling the truth, Governor. But so Yeah, and I'm not on social media. I lost my phone. My iPhone 8 doesn't have any of my messenger, my social media, my Instagram, whatever is not in this phone. So I have not paid attention to anything social media. And I don't have time for it. You know, I'm just like on the ground dealing with what's in front of me every day. And that's where I'm in the reality of things, right? I'm just boots on the ground, taking care of business. And that's kind of where I'm at. Civil beat, I think I did one civil beat interview, but they, you know, I just, yeah, I haven't been talking much to media, I guess, per se. But couple things I had to put out there just because I was begging and pleading for help at the hub and stuff. And it must have got through to some lines somewhere because, you know, then things started coming a little more. But again, you know, and there's a lot of people coming and then walking off and saying, look what I built. Like, no, you didn't. You know, I mean, why do people need to take credit? To me, it's like, I don't care who gets credit, but I mean, at least be part of it. If you are claiming you're, you know, but they're just whatever. I don't know. I'm not one of those. I just do what I need to do, and if people want to write about it and photograph it or whatever, that's fine. But you know, don't use it to puff yourself up because you weren't there. You know. So yeah, I got a brief comment too, real quickly, Jean, and this has reference to you and your party. And I guess my majority caucus is questioning, why am I so, you know, so friendly to the Republicans? Why am I so blah, blah, blah on board and not hanging out, but I mean, you know, Diamond Garcia came to the hub and we took a selfie, you know, I mean, he walked it. He was talking story. He wanted to learn and know what I'm doing. He came all the way over here to hear the 11 hours of testimony of the people of Lahaina. Like, right on, man. You know, I didn't see any other reps doing that. There's no color for me, you know, it's like red, blue, whatever. It's like, it's the person, right? It's the person that I care for and the person that I'll work with. And Jean knows this. I go to their luncheons all the time and people are like, you went to their luncheon? I'm like, why not? Yeah, of course I did. You know, I had a good time. I learned a lot. So I don't know. Jean
Ellie, you're a
knows.
gem. You are a gem.
Remember, I voted for
It's about
you.
the people. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about what the people is and what the assignment we've been given and what we should be doing.
Yeah,
On behalf of the people of Hawaii Kai, thank you so much. Can we give her
thank
a
you.
round of
Thank you.
applause? Can you hear the applause?
Yes.
Thank
yeah,
you,
thank
Ellie. You are a gem. Keep doing what you're doing. You're wired to be a blessing to the people.
Yeah.
Thank you and aloha.